October 3rd, 1993, Somalia.
Long time ago.
It was the most violent thing I've ever witnessed.
Action everywhere.
I took my camera and I pressed record.
Black Hawk was down.
In 1993, a mission that was supposed to last less than an hour turned into one of the most intense and chaotic urban battles in modern military history. For many people around the world, the story became widely known through the Hollywood film Black Hawk Down. But the reality behind those events is far more complicated, emotional, and human than any movie could fully capture. Decades later, the documentary Surviving Black Hawk Down revisits that moment in history and tells the story in a way that feels immediate, personal, and deeply reflective. Instead of focusing only on the American soldiers whose experiences shaped the popular narrative, this documentary brings together voices from both sides of the battle in Mogadishu, Somalia, creating a powerful and often haunting account of what truly happened during those long hours of conflict. The story begins with the tense situation in Somalia during the early 1990s. The country had been devastated by civil war, famine, and political collapse after the fall of its central government. Warlords controlled different parts of the capital, Mogadishu, and violence had become a daily reality for civilians trying to survive amid chaos. International forces entered the region in an attempt to stabilize the situation and deliver humanitarian aid. Among those forces were elite American units tasked with capturing leaders associated with powerful militia networks that were believed to be blocking aid and fueling the ongoing violence. What seemed like a straightforward operation on paper would soon spiral into a disaster that few involved could have predicted. The documentary approaches these events with a remarkable sense of intimacy. Rather than presenting a distant historical summary, it relies heavily on first-person accounts from soldiers, pilots, and Somali fighters who were present that day. Their memories form the backbone of the narrative, and each perspective reveals new layers of the battle. Some describe the tension before the mission began, the quiet preparation, and the assumption that it would be over quickly. Others recall the sense of urgency and adrenaline as helicopters roared over Mogadishu, carrying troops toward their target in the heart of the city. At first, the operation seemed to be unfolding according to plan. Helicopters inserted soldiers into the dense urban landscape, while ground vehicles moved to secure the area and transport captured targets. But within minutes, things began to go wrong. Militia fighters and armed civilians quickly mobilized, flooding the streets and surrounding the American forces. What had been planned as a rapid strike became a desperate fight for survival in a maze of narrow roads and crowded buildings. The documentary recreates this shift with a powerful mix of testimony and archival material, capturing the moment when the situation slipped out of control. One of the most dramatic turning points came when a Black Hawk helicopter was struck and crashed into the city. For the soldiers involved, the crash changed everything. Suddenly, the mission was no longer about arresting suspects, but about rescuing comrades trapped behind enemy lines. The documentary conveys the shock and urgency that spread through the units on the ground. Pilots describe seeing the helicopter fall from the sky, while soldiers recall hearing the radio calls that signaled the disaster. In those moments, the scale of the battle expanded rapidly, drawing more fighters and civilians into the chaos. What makes the documentary especially compelling is how it balances the American perspective with voices from the Somali side of the conflict. Many of the Somali participants describe how they experienced the sudden arrival of helicopters and gunfire in their neighborhoods. For them, the battle was not just a military engagement, but something unfolding directly in their streets and homes. Some speak about the fear and confusion that swept through the city as people tried to understand what was happening. Others describe joining the fighting out of loyalty to local leaders, anger at foreign intervention, or simply the instinct to defend their community. The film explores how these different motivations collided in the dense urban environment of Mogadishu. American troops were highly trained and equipped with advanced technology, yet they found themselves surrounded in unfamiliar territory. Somali fighters, on the other hand, knew the streets and alleys of the city, but faced overwhelming firepower from helicopters and armored vehicles. The battle became a brutal test of endurance for both sides, stretching far beyond the time frame anyone had expected. As the hours passed, the situation grew more desperate. Soldiers pinned down in buildings or trapped near crash sites had to fight continuously while waiting for rescue forces to reach them. Some recount the relentless sound of gunfire echoing through the streets and the constant pressure of trying to maintain communication under extreme conditions. The documentary gives these moments space to breathe, allowing the people who lived through them to describe the fear, determination, and confusion that defined the battle. Pilots also play a crucial role in the story. Several recount the dangerous missions they flew throughout the night, navigating hostile fire to provide support for the troops below. Their helicopters became lifelines, delivering ammunition, evacuating wounded soldiers, and scanning the chaotic battlefield for signs of movement. The documentary captures the tension inside the cockpit as pilots balance the need to help their comrades with the constant risk of being shot down themselves. Meanwhile, Somali witnesses describe the battle from a completely different vantage point. Some remember watching the helicopters circling above the city and hearing explosions in the distance. Others recall being caught in the middle of the fighting as bullets struck buildings and debris filled the streets. These testimonies reveal how deeply the battle affected the civilian population, turning neighborhoods into war zones almost overnight. One of the most striking aspects of the documentary is its emphasis on memory and reflection. Many of the participants are speaking about these events decades after they occurred, and time has given them space to process what they experienced. Some of the soldiers talk about the friendships formed during the battle and the losses that still weigh heavily on them. Others reflect on the difficulty of returning home and trying to explain what happened in Mogadishu to people who had never experienced combat. Somali participants also share their long-term reflections. For some, the battle remains a defining moment in their lives, shaping how they view the conflict that engulfed their country during the 1990s. Their stories add emotional depth to the narrative, reminding viewers that the consequences of the battle extended far beyond the soldiers involved. Throughout the documentary, the tone remains intensely immersive. The storytelling places the viewer inside the unfolding events, allowing the audience to feel the tension of each decision and the uncertainty faced by everyone on the ground. Instead of presenting the battle as a simple story of victory or defeat, the film emphasizes the complexity of war and the human experiences hidden behind historical headlines. Another key theme is the unpredictability of combat. Many of the soldiers describe how quickly the mission transformed from a controlled operation into a fight for survival. Plans that had seemed solid during briefings became irrelevant once the situation on the ground changed. Communication breakdowns, damaged vehicles, and the sheer intensity of the fighting forced individuals to make split-second decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. The documentary also explores the extraordinary acts of courage that occurred during the battle. Soldiers recount moments when teammates risked their lives to rescue the wounded or defend positions under heavy fire. These stories highlight the deep sense of loyalty that develops among people facing extreme danger together. At the same time, the film avoids turning these moments into simple hero narratives. Instead, it presents them as human responses to overwhelming circumstances. For many viewers, the most powerful moments come when the documentary juxtaposes memories from opposing sides of the conflict. A soldier might describe the chaos of trying to reach a crash site, while Somali fighters recall the same moment from nearby streets. Hearing these perspectives side by side creates a layered understanding of the battle, revealing how differently the same event can be experienced depending on where someone stands. The film also reflects on how the battle changed the way military operations were viewed around the world. The images and stories that emerged from Mogadishu shocked many observers and sparked intense debates about foreign intervention and peacekeeping missions. While the documentary does not focus heavily on political analysis, it acknowledges that the events of that day had far-reaching consequences for international policy and military strategy. As the battle stretched into the night, rescue convoys struggled to reach the trapped soldiers. Navigating the city's unfamiliar streets proved incredibly difficult, especially under constant attack. The documentary captures the sense of exhaustion and determination among the troops who fought hour after hour while waiting for help. Eventually, reinforcements arrived with armored vehicles that helped extract many of the surviving soldiers from the city. But the end of the battle did not bring an end to the story. Survivors from both sides carried the psychological impact of those events long after the gunfire stopped. In the documentary, some participants speak openly about the emotional scars left by the experience. For veterans, the memories of that day remain vivid even decades later, shaped by the intensity of what they endured together. Somali participants also discuss how the battle affected their communities. The destruction, loss of life, and lingering instability in the region became part of the larger story of Somalia's struggle during that era. By including these voices, the documentary broadens the narrative beyond the traditional focus on military operations, highlighting the human cost of conflict for everyone involved. The storytelling style of the film reinforces this sense of shared humanity. Even though the participants stood on opposite sides during the battle, their memories often reveal similar emotions: fear, confusion, determination, and grief. These parallels give the documentary a powerful emotional core, encouraging viewers to see the people behind the uniforms and weapons. Another fascinating element of the documentary is how it revisits the legacy of the original film that brought the story to global audiences. Many viewers first learned about the battle through that dramatized portrayal, which focused largely on the experiences of American soldiers during the mission. Surviving Black Hawk Down acknowledges that cultural impact, while offering a deeper and more nuanced perspective on the events themselves. By returning to the real individuals who lived through the battle, the documentary transforms what might have been a familiar story into something far more personal. The participants are not actors reenacting history, but witnesses sharing memories that have shaped their lives for decades. Their words carry a weight that fictional storytelling cannot replicate. As the narrative moves toward its conclusion, the documentary shifts into a reflective mode. Participants consider what the battle means to them now, many years after it took place. Some speak about the importance of remembering the fallen and honoring those who did not make it home. Others express a desire for people to understand the complexity of the situation rather than reducing it to a single narrative. The film ultimately leaves viewers with a sense of both tragedy and resilience. The battle in Mogadishu was one of the most intense urban combat engagements of its time, and the consequences were felt by everyone who experienced it. Yet, the documentary reveals moments of courage, solidarity, and reflection that emerged from the chaos. In revisiting those events through the voices of survivors, Surviving Black Hawk Down transforms a well-known historical episode into a deeply human story. It reminds us that behind every headline and every battlefield statistic are individuals whose lives were forever changed by what happened. Their memories, shared openly and honestly, create a powerful narrative about the reality of war and the enduring impact it leaves on those who survive it. The result is a documentary that feels both gripping and thoughtful, drawing viewers into the events of that day, while encouraging them to think about the broader implications of conflict and memory. By weaving together perspectives from both sides of the battle, it offers a rare opportunity to see the past through multiple lenses. The story that emerges is not just about helicopters falling from the sky or soldiers fighting through city streets. It is about people. Soldiers, civilians, and fighters trying to navigate a moment of history that none of them could fully control, and finding ways to carry those memories forward long after the battle ended.